Others call me Mother Nature. I've been here for over 4.5 billion years. 22,500 times longer than you. I don't really need people, but people need me. Yes, your future depends on me. When I thrive, you thrive. When I falter, you falter. Or worse. But I've been here for eons. I have fed species greater than you, and I have starved species greater than you. My oceans, my soil, my flowing streams, my forests, they all can take you or leave you. How you choose to live each day, whether you regard or disregard me, doesn't really matter to me. One way or the other. Your actions will determine your fate, not mine. I am nature. I will go on. I am prepared to evolve. Are you?
Climate change. It's real, it's serious, and it's up to us to solve it. In the last 2 decades, we've experienced 14 of the hottest 15 years on record. By 2050, drought and chronic water shortages could impact 1 billion people, while millions more will be at risk from coastal flooding. It can seem overwhelming, but there's reason for hope. If we embrace solar and wind power to their full potential, we can cut the world's yearly carbon emissions by 1/3. Already, Germany generates 27% of its electricity from renewables, with a goal of 80% by 2050. Denmark has shown it can produce more wind energy than it can use, and England is building the world's biggest offshore wind farm. Communities large and small are taking steps. A new public building in Mexico City has an exterior that breaks down air pollutants, erasing the effects of 1,000 cars each day. Paris installed street tiles that harvest energy from foot traffic. Other cities are paving streets with smog-eating concrete and sidewalks with recycled materials. Individuals can make a difference too, through the choices we make every day. If every American driver drove 10 miles less each week, it could eliminate more than 100 billion pounds of carbon from the air each year. New innovations are making important strides possible, and more are on the way, but we can't wait. Reimagining our world's energy future will take a shared sense of urgency from countries, companies, cities, and all of us. Working together, real change is possible. Learn more at natgeo.com/climate.
Good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to our September 2023 episode of Kamayan Forum. As usual, we will begin our program with our Zoom etiquette, to be followed by our opening prayer and the Philippine National Anthem. Moreover, we are currently live streaming on our Green Convergence GCFB page. Muli po, makakalikasang araw sa ating lahat. To formally open our program today, let us welcome our prayer leader, CEO of Veritas Innovation Network for Entrepreneurship and Sustainability, or VINES, Father Benigno Beltran, SVD.
Christian prayer in union with creation. In the name of the Father, of the Son, of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Father, we praise you with all your creatures. They came forth from your all-powerful hand. They are yours, filled with your presence and your tender love. Praise be to you. Son of God, Jesus Christ, through you all things were made. You were formed in the womb of Mary, our mother. You became part of this earth, and you gazed upon this world with human eyes. Today you are alive in every creature, in your risen glory. Praise be to you. Holy Spirit, by your light, you guide this world towards the Father's love and accompany creation as it groans in travail. You also dwell in our hearts, and you inspire us to do what is good. Praise be to you. Triune God, wondrous community of infinite love, teach us to contemplate you in the beauty of the universe, for all things speak of you. O Lord, seize us with your power and light. Help us to protect all life, to prepare for a better future, for the coming of your kingdom of justice, peace, love, and beauty. Praise be to you forever and ever. Amen. In the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang mag-ibig, helas ng sinaganan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Upang hinirang, tuyag ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagagang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ng pagkaw, ay hinagang tulang awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang islang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nag-iindig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pamay di magdidinig. Luman ang araw ng walhaging pagsinta, mo'y langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya na pagkay mga amin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
All right, good afternoon everyone and welcome to the September 2023 Kamayan para sa Kalikasan Forum, and this is our 399th session with a theme entitled Valuing Our Ecosystems as Natural Capital. And before we move on to our program for this afternoon, I'd like to acknowledge our partners who made this forum possible. Of course, I'd like to thank MAP, or the Management Association of the Philippines, and CASA, or the Climate Association or Climate Action and Sustainability Alliance. Once again, maraming salamat po sa CASA and sa MAP or MAP. Welcome to our Kamayan Forum. And with that, I'd like to give a quick run-through of our program or what's going to happen this afternoon. Of course, we will be having our opening ceremonies, later to be followed by our first part or the discussion of the main topic. And then later on, we will be asking the questions or maybe the comments from our participants here on Zoom and maybe on our Facebook page, later to be answered by our invited speakers. And we will be having, of course, our photo op later before we end our program. Okay, I think we can now move on to our first part of activity for today. But before that, I'd like to introduce myself, your moderator or your co-moderator for this afternoon or session. My name is Mark Pinao. I'm the director of the Lasal Institute for the Environment and a board member of the Green Convergence. Moving on to our opening remarks, I'd like to call on Dr. Nina Galang, the immediate past president and the current trustees of Green Convergence. Doc Nina? To mention each one of you, and I think I don't have the luxury of time to acknowledge each one of you. So I'm inviting everyone to please write your name and your affiliation and where you are right now on our chat box. And later, hopefully we have extra time, I'll be able to acknowledge each one of you. So feel free to write your name na lang po and ating organization and where you are right now. Go ahead, Doc Nina.
Yeah, good afternoon. Sorry for that little glitch. Isang makakalikasang araw sa ating lahat. Welcome to our September 2023 issue of Kamayan para sa Kalikasan Forum. We welcome all our members, allies, all environmentalists, and especially our new friends in CASA, or Climate and Sustainability Alliance, and MAP, the Management Association of the Philippines. I hope that you all will be regular participants from now on. We have this webinar every third Friday of the month, where we tackle relevant current issues. Today we have a topic that promises to be a game changer if pursued to its desired conclusion. I wonder if you have heard or expressed the lament. We Filipinos, if we are so rich, why are we so poor? Yes, we are rich in what really matters, in what is or are essential for life. The type of nature that the Lord has blessed us with. This is what matters. Because of our geographical spot on the planet, our geology, our topography, we are islandic, mountainous, tropical, volcanic. Because of these characteristics, we have precious ecosystems that render ecological services as well as harbor an immense variety of plants and animals. We have different types of forests from the top to the bottom of the mountains. We have fantastic coral, mangrove, and seagrass ecosystems in our coastal areas. All these should give us clean air and water, rich soil, adequate healthy food, and materials for our varied needs. And even renewable energy sources, we have a lot of. We have our precious West Philippine Sea and our newly found portion, the Benam Rice, teeming with immense biodiversity. How have we valued this natural heritage? Have we valued it? I believe that we as a people, especially in this audience, do recognize and appreciate the worth of these riches. We know it in our hearts. The indigenous peoples honor it with their way of life. However, for the purpose of national planning, there is need to incorporate them in the national accounting system. There is need for us to be able to quantify them to the extent possible. Our present system will require assigning them monetary value, I think. Perhaps if we can do that, our national programs will consider them capital that we should protect and increase just like we protect and increase, we try to increase our money in the bank. Unless we do that, we will always take them for granted, consider them as externalities, or worse, accept that their depreciation as acceptable collateral damage. This attitude must change. It has caused the damage that we have been inflicting on our environment for so long. This damage, which has compromised the integrity of our ecosystems, reducing their ability to support our basic needs. This is the root of our socio-economic problems, a root, but for us environmentalists, it is the root of our socio-economic problems, the worst of which is the widespread poverty among our people. Changing this attitude and actualizing the change through PENCAS, the Philippine Ecosystems and Natural Capital Accounting System, the bill introduced in Congress by Senator Loren Legarda. By changing this, I hope, as I said, we will have on our hands a game changer. It is time to go into it urgently. Let us hear about it and let us support the bill. Thank you. Let us all have a good forum. Good afternoon.
Maraming salamat, Doc Nina Galang. I like that line. Philippines is so rich, yet so poor. It's simple, but it's really deep. So maybe ito ang pwede natin pag-isip-isipan sa mga darating pang panahon at lalong-lalo na sa ating mga ginagawa para sa ating bayan at para sa ating kalikasan. Now, moving on to our next part, maybe this is the right time for me to acknowledge our participants. Sige, allow me to browse our chat box. I'd like to acknowledge, of course, Attorney Ipat from OSLL, Padre Garcia, Batangas, Father Benigno Beltran, Elizabeth Palais from Tabuk City, Kalinga Province, and a member of Green Convergence. Welcome po, magandang hapon. And Miss Marites Romena from DNR, Quezon City. We have Hal Atienza, Philippine Executive Director of Global Seed Savers from Cebu City. Carl Mark Morta, ADRA or ADRA Philippines, EGIF Foundation from Davao City, Ara Mercado of SSMNAI. Good afternoon also to Mr. June Martin D. Bobis, an MS Environmental Science and Ecosystem Management student from De La Salle University, Manila. Welcome, good afternoon. We have here Ms. Rhea Frossard, Campaign and Research Director of Oceana. Kier Patria, I hope I mentioned your name right. Kier Patria, third-year biology student from Silliman University. Aiko Tamashiro, BS Environmental Planning from Miriam College, Laguna. Darla Valera from Miriam College, of course, a student from Miriam College as well. And Miss Mea Gonzaga of Philippine Normal University, Visayas. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Please feel free to write your names and your organization po. Later we'll be able to acknowledge you as well. And I know you've heard this so many times, but I think it's imperative for me to share this participant guideline to all of us. So first one, to avoid distracting ambient noise, all participants are requested to keep your microphones on mute for the duration of the webinar, except, of course, during the open forum, when participants are welcome to speak and ask questions. And second, meantime, you may use our chat box for comments, reactions, or messages. Or maybe you have, medyo mahihiya po tayo later to ask questions. Feel free to directly send your comments or suggestions or questions on my personal chat box or privately. All right. And I think it's also the perfect time for me to share this information or trivia. I know it's gonna maybe preempt a little detail about our presentations or our session this afternoon, but the CASA working group or our co-organizer today who work with Senator, who was then Congresswoman Loren Legarda on the PENCAS or the Philippine Ecosystem and Natural Capital Bill, was the working group also on recovering with nature, was co-chaired by former Secretary Socio-Economic Planning then. I think that was under Ramos administration. Dr. Chelito or Chel Habito and Attorney Ipat Luna and some other members of CASA, including one of our actors today, si Dr. Marian or Ann de los Angeles, and other experts from ecosystems disciplines. And of course, Dr. Cora Claudio and Dr. Nina Galang. Once again, I think we can now move on to our program proper or our part one, the discussion of the main topic by our speakers. Our first topic for this afternoon is the Philippine Ecosystem and Natural Capital Accounting System or PENCAS Act. Our speaker for this afternoon is no less than Senator Lauren Legarda. Senator Lauren Legarda has consistently chanted her life mantra of caring for the Filipino people, the country, and the planet. She has always taken it as an article of faith to hear the desires of the people, to have foresight, and to see beyond what is needed to make the country and the world a better place. For many years, she has advocated for sustainable and equitable use of our natural resources, pushed for strengthening community resilience, advocated for social justice, human rights, peace, and cultural diversity, and initiated measures for quality and accessible education, decent employment, and livelihood opportunities. Without further ado, please welcome Senator Lauren Legarda.
Magandang araw sa lahat. Inaanyayahan ko kayong isipin ang kwentuhan ng mga kababaihan katapat ng kwentong barbero pero may pinagkakaabalahan. Naglalabas sa sapa o nagsusulsi habang binabantayan ng mga bata. Ang kwentuhan ay kung paano nalalamang kumikita ang kanilang mga maliliit na negosyo. Sabi nga ng isa, mabuti na lamang at hindi na sila umuupa. Malaking bawas sa gastusin kaya kumikita ang tindahan. Sabi ng pangalawa, mabuti na lamang at tumutulong na ang panganay. Sabi ng pangatlo, mabuti na lamang at naibebenta ang tanim ng gulay, malaking bawas sa puhunan. Sabi ng pang-apat, mabuti at hindi ako pumayag na putulin ng barangay ang puno sa may tindahan kung hindi ay hindi makakayanan ang init at kailangang magsara ng tindahan sa tanghali. Ito po ang mga halimbawa ng hindi natin kinikwenta sa maliliit na negosyo at maihahambing sa ekonomiya ng ating bansa. Marami sa nakakaginhawa, sa nakakabawas sa pagkalugi at sa nakakapagpatuloy ng mga serbisyong pampubliko ay hindi nabibilang. Sa national accounting, kabilang dito ang mga taong tumutulong batay sa sariling gastusan at ang mga kaugnayan, ang nakabahaging halaga na nagbibigay daan sa mga individual na magtulungan upang epektibong makamit ang isang karaniwang layunin ay tinatawag na social capital. Kabilang din ang mga bunga ng kalikasan na napapakinabangan gaya ng mga biyaya ng lupa, prutas, gulay, kanlong ng mga puno. Nariyan din ang mga proseso ng kalikasan na maaaring turinging intangible ngunit tinuturing namang isang puhunan gaya ng kalinisan ng tubig at hangin, dulot ng pagsasala ng lupa, paglilinis ng hangin dulot ng paglago ng mga puno at halaman, at pagtupok ng lamok ng mga tutubi at paniki ay maituturing naman na natural capital. Kapag hindi natin binibigyang halaga ang natural na yaman, maaaring dahan-dahang nalulugi ang ating bayan nang hindi natin namamalayan. As you can see, it was very hard to try to keep explaining natural capital in Filipino. Putting in everyday experience and in a language we can relate to is my best attempt. The reason it is hard to capture and explain is that it is tied up not just with actual stocks, fruits, vegetables, timber, minerals, but also with the invisible relationships and processes. We need to account for the food chain and what eats what in the ecosystem to be able to appreciate the services some animals provide. We need to see entire ecosystems to appreciate that the thriving of the coral reef is due to the ground cover of the upland soils by vegetation. We need to appreciate that as maligned as snakes are in the Bible and in our normal everyday life, their predation of small mammals reduces the spread of viruses brought about by rodents due to the antiviral properties of snake venom. And there is so much we still do not know and understand of the services nature gives us. Unfortunately, what we do not know, we have failed to value, and we have failed to account for it in understanding if we are gaining or losing. Now, I am the first one to tell you that this PENCAS enactment of the law will not be easy. There is always a possibility that it can be used just to value what can be extracted and feign ignorance of all the accompanying processes of the destroyed ecosystems. This is why the provisions of Environmental Impact Assessment, EIA, and the rights of nature are very important ones. Just because we are assigning value to these previously undervalued stocks and services does not mean that we can just pay to destroy them. It will be a long road ahead. Like all tools, natural capital accounting can be used for evil purpose. We need a populace that is educated enough and vigilant enough to prevent irreparable damage to our ecosystems. So, having said that, I look forward to your discussion of PENCAS, and I hope for your amendments to the discussions, TWG, and the hearings that we have to make it the best law possible. Isang lunti ang Pilipinas sa ating lahat.
All right, maraming salamat, Senator. And I know you have a lot of questions about the PENCAS Act. And I think together with our co-organizer, in view of that, may we request maybe everyone, or if not everyone, to those who have questions about PENCAS or to Senator, maybe you can write or email Green Convergence, and we will send these questions to the Office of Senator and hopefully be able to get their feedback and give their answers or comments about your questions. Now, once again, maraming salamat po, Senator. Thank you for giving us a glimpse of PENCAS Act. We can now move on to the second session for this afternoon. To talk about still the PENCAS Act, our next speaker, she is an environmental economist who has worked at the University of the Philippines, the World Agroforestry Center, the World Bank, and other agencies. She helped initiate the Wealth Accounting and Valuation of Ecosystem Services Global Partnership Program, led a major project on biodiversity and watersheds for the Philippines, and authored works on climate and global change economics. She joins other consultants working under Resources, Environment, and Economic Center for Studies Incorporated, or REECS, a consortium partner implementing USAID's CBOL activity. The consortium will promote economic incentives grounded on the science of economic valuation and sustainable supply chain studies. Please welcome our speaker for this afternoon, the National Capital Accounting Specialist of REECS, Dr. Marian de Los Angeles.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Let me share my screen. Thank you for the generous introduction. May I know if you see it?
Yes po, Doctor.
Thank you. So my presentation or reaction or discussion will cover the following. I will walk us through the global genesis and current status of natural capital accounting, present a few Philippine NCA efforts and selected results, and end up with the gaps that motivate the PENCAS bill. So we are actually trying to measure flows between the economy and the environment in biophysical terms as well as in economic terms to some extent possible. So I'm showing here two important things. One, that the economy is part of the environment. We are embodied in the environment, in ecosystems. And two, there are flows from ecosystems to the economy that happen in many ways. And these flows are important. And I'm not talking yet about economic importance, but just importance for the use of certain provisioning services or basic goods and commodities that come from the ecosystem. Cultural services such as knowledge, traditional knowledge included, recreation, among others. Regulating services like climate regulation, flows of water, hydrological flows, temperature, and the like, and support for flora and fauna who rely on their natural habitats. There are also values that have to do with what we could use in the future or option values. And then there are important aspects that may not be economically valuable in peso terms, but are important nonetheless. And this is the existence values, altruism, feeling good that others are using or are dependent on natural ecosystems, and bequest, our desire to leave for heritage purposes something for future generations. The problem with our income accounts, as is experienced in many other parts of the world, is that we are only registering what happens through market transactions. So we are able to use the receipts from all over. The PSA consolidates all the information from market transactions that allow valuation of these, the used values for the economy. But the others are not covered because there are no markets for these, or there are markets, but they are faulty, incomplete. So the response to this problem has been for the UN to develop. The UN has developed the system of environmental economic accounting, and this has taken decades. It started in the late 80s. A 1993 handbook was formulated. Debate occurred for at least 20 years, and finally the UN Statistical Commission approved the statistical standard for the SEEA Central Framework. That was covering a lot of the use of natural resources for basic goods and commodities. There's one part there that is not yet in this handbook, and that is ecosystem services. And there was an experimental version that was created in 2013. This again went through considerable debate globally. And finally, a statistical standard was admitted or approved in 2021. So by statistical standards, this means that whichever nation wants to do SEEA, it should follow the principles in the handbook, regardless of which accounts the nation chooses to develop first, because not all countries develop the same set of accounts. The accounts are meant to meet a certain demand for decision making, and some countries are more biased towards policies on pollution, air pollution, and their accounts handle such. Other countries look into water and they focus on water, and other countries on ecosystem services specific to an ecosystem. So there's a lot of work that has gone through this globally, and Dr. Castillo has been recently more engaged in this. I was a long time ago, and in a little bit now. So it's a considerable work that has gone into the SEEA. What are indicated in the SEEA? First, you start with physical flows, biophysical flows, the natural input flows, product flows. These ones are in already the system of national accounts. Residuals, and these are pollution issues handled here, air, water, and land pollution, and more recently, ecosystem services. So a lot of measurements, not necessarily in economic terms yet. And I emphasize that because even by these indicators that come up of the physical flows, one can already have some management basis for management decisions, like relative sources of pollution, relative causes of deforestation, and the like. So these are embodied in the two handbooks. And I want to emphasize in this that the handbooks always talk about assets and flows. And this is very much in parallel to the system of income accounting of private companies, where there's always current accounts, and that's also done in the system of national accounts and asset accounts. Not all countries do asset accounts, but the companies always have assets and liabilities, and they have the current accounts. So the stock of anything, any natural capital like water here, is dependent on what flows into that stock in the previous period. And also the stock now will change if something flows out in the future here. So when that is looked into in physical terms and eventually valued in economic terms, the value of this asset changes, and therefore one can say if it is a change that is positive, the asset is appreciating. If the change is negative, the asset is depreciating. Very much the same as what happens to our household assets. Our man-made assets. When we have a house and we maintain the house, we are able to make it appreciate. If we don't, it depreciates. There are always two sides of the system of environmental economic accounts. And these are, the first one is on the central framework, which talks about how natural stocks of capital, timber, water, fish, soil, minerals, land, and seabed are used in the economy. We need to note though, so this is the central framework, the assets and the resources. We need to note though that these natural stocks are contained or hosted by ecosystems, and that these are depicted here. Timber are in forest lands and forests. Water may be in rivers. Fish are associated with coral reefs, among others, and seagrasses and sea and other parts of the sea, the marine life. And then you have wetlands. And so all these ecosystems are interrelated with each other. And these interrelationships are what are measured in the SEEA ecosystem accounting. So I'm going to talk more about the central framework, while Dr. Castillo will talk more about the ecosystem accounting. How has SEA been all over the world? Different countries have evolved and some are late startups. We were actually an early startup. We were piloting a lot thanks to the political will of the government who tried to seek funds from many sources to do the piloting and several initiatives. So we are considered to be in stage 3 amongst the 62 countries that are doing more accounting work, natural capital accounting work than other countries. Others are still planning, and others don't have any data at all to do the accounts. But we should also note that for the few countries here noted in Africa, they have gotten together into what is called the NCA practitioners, community of practitioners, in order to learn from each other and accelerate their work. And this is a very active community of practitioners of African NCA. We are not doing that yet in our part of the world. I am showing here the evolution, and the data here now is by regions, and we need not look at this in greater detail, but we need to point out that there are more and more countries that are joining, and 2023 would even be a lot more. So in our case, we are in Southeast Asia. We are grouped here. This is the ADB Asia Group, and so percentage of countries would be in 29% in stage 1 and 50% in stage 3. In the ASEAN region, we have various practices, and Indonesia is in stage 3 of its implementation. They focus a lot more on carbon accounting and deforestation. They are into carbon markets. Lao PDR is looking into watershed services, including what they are exporting to Thailand. Malaysia is doing considerable work in fisheries and marine resources. The Philippines is led by the Philippine Statistics Authority. We are using compile data that is not imputed, actual data, and the PSA is compiling the central framework SEEA. Not quite yet the SEEA EA. They are beginning to, and we will talk about that later. Thailand is in stage 2, and the NSO is also involved here. They are doing also ocean accounting to a limited extent in the Andaman Sea. This is how we have evolved in the Philippines. Matagal na tayo. Mostly special projects here. This is what I participated in various stages. And then DNR got fund. This was the USAID funded. DNR got funds from UNDP to implement the handbook, not yet the statistical standard. And this was together with other pilot countries of the UN Statistical Division all over the world. And then there's this international workshop. And then more recently, the World Bank led the wealth accounting and valuation of ecosystem services. And finally, we have the roadmap that was recently approved with the leadership of NEDA and PSA. And there is already an existing interagency committee. What have these initiatives been doing? Marami. We have all these accounts. Even this one is already being done by PSA. There's water accounts, mineral accounts, and the like. And so that's the good news. And the other good news is that the PSA is really quite busy with many other accounts. I should mention at this point that the SEA is not integrated into the system of national accounts. It is among what are called satellite accounts that enhance what comes out of the system of national accounts. So the SNA is not disturbed, but it is enhanced. Complementary systems are being developed as listed here. And in the development of those satellite accounts, various partners are listed here. And we should also note that the system of environmental economic accounting integrates many data sets. These data sets are already being generated in various ways by the departments and by their respective bureaus and special agencies. And these are partly listed here. This one is part of DNR and others as well. Partly also agriculture, and then you have the climate change body. These data are combined to produce, supposed to be, an integrated set of accounts from which we could use indicators to develop policy relevant action. And this is the wish list. No? Now, what are examples of such indicators? I mentioned that you can have assets valued. And here is an effort of the World Bank to value forest timber assets, forest ecosystem services like recreation that is forest-based, ecosystem services from protected areas, to some extent biodiversity areas, croplands, and pasture lands. And these are the results from the various regions of the world. Here we are in Asia. And this is negative change or depreciation in the case of timber, appreciation of ecosystem services from forests, recreation-based forests, for example, and watershed protection, protected areas, cropland, and pasture. And in terms of the physical basis of these, you have this map that shows a percentage change on a per hectare of forest. And here we are. We are positive already for now, but it's not a big positive. Okay. This is a bigger picture of the change, and more recent data is being presented here, and the percentage changes are indicated in these colors. Dark green is good, and the red, dark red is pretty bad, negative, less than 5% in the negative. So the question here is, natural capital is part of total wealth. We have human capital, natural capital, social capital, and then you could also count financial capital, although that is in a different genre. There is also, I talked about social. Then there's, of course, man-made capital, the machinery that we produce, the houses that we have. And what we really should be looking into is this mix of capital. In total, is that increasing? And if it is, that's well and good. Is one increase at the expense of the other? Is there are other things that need to be improved? We also have, sorry, I accidentally stopped sharing. Okay, we also have another indicator that falls out of the measurement of natural capital, and this is what is called adjusted net savings or genuine savings. As household members, any saving we have is for the future. It is either for education or for investments in future activities. or for the rainy day. So it's good to have savings. So similarly, at the national level, one should look at savings. But the way savings is being measured for now is that it is not adjusted for a number of important changes in natural capital. And so here is an effort to do such adjustments. And there is always a saving, and then or depreciation of fixed capital is indicated here. And then if you adjust that for, excuse me, this is gross saving. If you adjust it for depreciation of fixed capital or machinery and man-made assets, then you have a lower figure. It becomes this, net saving. Now, when we expend money on education, we're actually saving for the future. We are investing in human capital. So educational expenditures is added back here, and that increases net saving plus educational expenditures indicator. After that adjustment, which raised saving, we now adjust for the depletion of natural resources, for example, forests, fisheries, and minerals, if that is what we discovered or computed. And in this case, for the whole world, for this example, the depletion adjusted saving brings the situation to a negative, a dis-saving condition. And even worse, if one adds damages arising from pollution, for example, on health and land productivity and habitats, then the genuine saving or the depletion adjusted savings, it's now called adjusted net savings, popular term is genuine savings, even more negative. So this is one indicator that is being watched out for globally. And we hope that we can eventually compute for that. So this rough computation by the World Bank is indicated here for the various regions. And the most difficult region is Sub-Saharan Africa. What is depicted here is not the absolute number of genuine savings, but genuine savings as a percentage of gross national income, because that's an important derivative indicator. And also you cannot put in the graph all the measures of net savings because they're very divergent from one region to the other. So we are sort of normalizing vis-a-vis GNI. And what we have here are trends of various regions in the various regions. And for East Asia and the Pacific, this is what we have. We are not doing too bad. So there was decline here, and then increase, then decline, increase, decline, and so on. So this is as a group, and part of that has to do with some of our members who are doing well in terms of the management of natural resources and the other factors that come into the computations. This is a partial report, partial analysis, because the degree of completion of the NCA is not even across countries, but we do have a possibility of learning from this already. Okay, so for the Philippines, since the 1990s, here are the figures. This is extracted from the World Bank database. Any one of us can get this. Any one of you can access this. And this is the original gross national savings number. And this is the resulting genuine savings line. And this resulted from all these adjustments that we have in these bar charts. They include adjustments for depreciation of fixed capital or man-made capital, education expenditures, positive, but we wish these are a lot more. And then you have natural resource depletion, which is indicated here. So the bar has been increasing. Excuse me. and pollution damage, which is also indicated, but it's a very slim figure because there's for pollution damage, because most pollution damages are not valued yet, or if they are valued, they are embedded somehow in the gross national income and not separated for better information purposes. Fisheries is also very undervalued, and biodiversity is not economically valued in this graph. Let's remind ourselves of what we can do from the accounts. We don't come up with the accounts merely for an adjustment of the gross national product or gross national income to come up with a green GDP. The importance of the accounts come out of the sectoral analysis, and they also come out of spatial analysis, geospatial analysis. So this is what happened in the Philippines during this period of analysis. Depletion and depreciation were measured for these natural resources. And of all surprises, we ended up with a measurement that said we were depleting our fisheries a lot more during that time. This is a period when forests had also been depleted. So we were already starting with a low figure. So mababa na ang ating depreciation of forest resources here. But we didn't go as far back as the previous period then because of the availability of information. The upland soils are the horizon A, where the soil is fertile and can support agricultural crops and other flora. And the minerals were focused on a few of the major minerals. We also looked at residuals at the national and subnational levels, and we looked at pollution loads from different sectors and households, and for some rough estimates of damages in coral reef and irrigated land. And we looked at air quality in Metro Manila and Metro Cebu through air pollution dispersion modeling and using data from the Department of Transport and the like. And there was a look into Laguna Lake. There was a considerable institutionalization plan for these agencies, but they were aborted somehow. And so I already mentioned this. There was also a number of applications that were done because our team was not only a team of natural resource specialists and environmental economists. We got into the team what we would call traditional economists who use the data to do some simulations. And one such simulation was done to look into the impacts on pollution from impending WTO ratification at that time. Also, our international economists looked at competitiveness impacts if we had full cost internalization, if we imposed pollution fees fully on all sectors according to the apparent damages that they would cause. There were also sector-specific work on these, and some of them fell out of in-between projects during the resource accounting work. There were the most successful part with respect to economic instruments reformulation, where sectoral on the gasoline lead reduction, there was an interim tax before the full ban, and at that time the Tariff Commission was happy about this because of the revenue that tax generated. And then there were economic instruments, access fees, and the like for different protected areas, and a guidebook that DNR approved. And for the implication on the poorer or disadvantaged groups, we looked into the community-based forest management groups and whether or not they should be exempted from forest charges. When we estimated the value of their unpaid household labor, we concluded and recommended that they should be exempted from forest charges since they were not using the wood for commercial purposes. And all these. We were not able to look at rental for patrimonial properties because of data problems. We were able to come up with implications on grassland lease reforms, but the implementation was short-lived when the government changed and the new president gave in to the pasture lessees. We tried pollution fees for Marilao and Kamayan rivers, but this could not be implemented while it was in Laguna Lake. This was not feasible at that time because of the lack of the institutional basis for it, for the local government units. Here is an example of wealth accounts comparisons, and I will not bother you with this now since I'm a bit short of time now. So what are the gaps in national capital accounting? Why do we need to have a PENCAS bill when we have all these efforts? We've been doing this to some extent. The government has been doing to some extent. PSA has been generating some accounts, DNR, and then you have some special projects too. So they have been doing this based on the executive order that was passed in 1999 after the resource accounting projects of the DNR finished. But political support has been intermittent, to say the least, and constraints were limited despite investments in capacity, partly because people move up, they move positions when governments change, and some people graduate. We actually did a study on what happened to the people who we trained, the 60 or so whom we trained decades ago, and we have findings on who have migrated, who passed away, who are already big bosses, and who went to the private sector. The PSA work on minerals, fisheries, and land and water needs to be done periodically, if not yearly. And the numbers that come out of this work needs to be processed further by analysts. The analysts are not with PSA. The analysts are with NEDA, PIDS, academic institutions, independent groups, including those in the NGOs. And we should all have access to such information. And this part is embodied in the PENCAS draft bill. So updates are always needed because there are always emerging issues, and we didn't look into climate change. We didn't look then at that time of our export of climate sequestration in our mangrove forests because we didn't look at the relationship with the rest of the world at that time. And investments in recovering with nature need to be looked into a lot more closely. Thus, the bill filed by this good senator and the other two senators is really quite important. There is a lot of potential for a PENCAS enhanced PENCAS bill. What's important is that the enhanced National Statistical Information System, which estimates values that are market-based and focuses on production, continues to do so using past and current accounts. But we need to do an options analysis in order to explore alternatives for investments, alternatives for regulations, alternatives for policies. And not too many is doing this yet. We also need to use some more the biophysical and environmental indicators that fall out or are generated by a national statistical information system on PENCAS. So that is something we would like to look forward to. There are a few environmental evaluation studies that are being generated, and Jem will talk, Dr. Castillo will talk about this, and they include full economic valuation, which has its own purposes. And they could be used for environmental impact analysis if the EIA is going to be reformulated or reformed, and scenario analysis at the administrative units or ecosystem units of local governments or regional RDCs. And if there is a policy issue, we can have benefit cost analysis of that policy issues. Another important potential use is to develop economic instruments that would capture non-market values and which should eventually make people behave in a more environmentally sound manner. And finally, many of the indicators could help us develop conservation financing approaches in terms of types of instruments that are important, such as the green bond in Indonesia and the like, and carbon taxes perhaps, and also credit ratings that are used by our banks, including our development banks, could be enhanced with data from this system. So the motivation for the PENCAS bill is that while the executive branch has been working on NCA in various initiatives, most of these have been externally funded. And to the credit of these members of the executive branch, there is some institutionalization going on, but it is partial because of fund limitation and capacity. Self-funding is thus needed so that we don't end up with sporadic accounts here. It's difficult to have some long-term policy when the accounts are sporadic or one-time, and the indicators are one-time indicators. So the NCA roadmap runs through 2040, and that would be a push towards a more concerted effort, particularly if the PENCAS bill is passed. We are expected to benefit from a rationalized data production and information processing. By that, I mean that the agencies no longer just do their own thing for their own uses, but also look at the broader use of their data that would become sources of information for other more cross-sector and cross-ecosystem changes and indicate and relationships. So the regular use of indicators would be applied by various users, hopefully at all levels and at various spatial configuration as needed, small islands, big islands, or some big watersheds and the like. So thank you very much for your attention.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Ann, for that comprehensive presentation. I think this presentation as well would be a call for everyone to really help push for PENCAS bill. And I hope also our legislative department would also expedite this PENCAS bill. Once again, maraming salamat po, Dr. Ann. Please sit back and we will be calling you again later during our open forum. And before we move on to our second part, the panel of reactors, maybe I'd like to first acknowledge yung mga naiwan po natin kanina na mga participants. I'd like to acknowledge Ms. Carmelita Hansel of Society of Native Tree Advocates, Trina Tolentino, Bamboo Warrior Philippines, and I think also our Facebook live stream link was shared by Miss Anna. So please help us share also this link to your respective social media platforms. And do we have any more queries?
Hi there,
Alright.
Mark.
Good afternoon, Miss Marie, my co-moderator for this afternoon. So I'd like to give now the floor to you.
No, I'm so sorry. You know, my grandson said it happens pag nag-update bigla ng out of place, tapos ang tagal-tagal, tapos nag-clean up. My God, I couldn't come in. I'm so sorry. You know what? We're so lucky we have you today. I'm sure nobody introduced you because
No problem at all.
I was supposed to do that, but I want to do that, you know, because I'm happy that you're here today. Imagine if you were not here. So, dear friends, who do we have here? Our co-moderator is a very busy young man. So, mabuti na lang nandito siya, having been recently appointed director of the Lasallian Institute for the Environment or LIFE of De La Salle, Philippines. At the same time, he is a consultant of the Environmental Management Bureau of DNR and a trustee of Green Convergence. So thank you, Mark, for
Thank you so much,
for
Miss Mary.
covering up for me while I was not around. Nakakaloka, nakaka-stress biglang, ay,
Ganun
why
talaga,
can't
Miss
I?
Marie, ang live show. It really happens. And the show must go on.
I know. Thank you so much. You're so good. You're so great. Thank you. And now I think we're about to introduce our last reactor.
I think our first reactor.
Our first. Who
Yes.
was? Oh, who? Wait. So sorry, ha. Kasi I'm coming in cold. Are we going to introduce Attorney Dr. Jem?
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
So I can do that.
Sure.
Our next reactor is our reactor is currently the president and chairman of the board of the Resources, Economics and Environment Center for Studies, or REECS, or REECS. He is also concurrently the president of the Resources and Environmental Economics Foundation of the Philippines, or REEP. Oh, ganda ng mga acronym, REAP naman. No? And the National Director of the Economy and Environment Group Philippines, EEG, the country institution partner of the Economy and Environment Partnership in Southeast Asia. He is a local and international expert in natural resource and environmental economics. As an expert, he has been involved in a wide range of topics, such as wealth accounting and valuation of ecosystem services, the economics of environmental governance, forest land use planning, the economics of coastal resources management, and payment for environmental services, among others. Friends, we are lucky to have with us today Dr. Jem Castillo. Good afternoon, Dr. Jem.
Maraming salamat po. I hope that you can hear me. And looks like it's raining heavily here in my place in Los Baños.
We can hear you well.
Okay, thank you. Then let me thank you for that introduction. And our first panelist after Senator Lauren Ligarda was my professor when I was a student, and at the same time my PhD committee member when I did my PhD, si Dr. Angeles, and she's the one of the initiator why I went into natural resource accounting, because my PhD is on natural resource accounting. But now you're shifting towards natural capital accounting. Let me share my screen, if I may, so I can present. And let me know if you can see my presentation.
Yes, we can see it.
All right, so this is brief because I only have 15 minutes, and I think the next presenter is about to go to another session, so I'll make this brief. So this is not also a full presentation. Thank you, Doc Ann, for having that comprehensive presentation. So that means I am free now to just focus on a few items, because the first question is, once we implement TENCAS, the next question is how? And so some of the details that I'll be presenting is some of the things that we have already done, especially in the last 10 years, including the implementation of the wealth accounting and valuation of ecosystem services under the World Bank, and also some natural resource accounting efforts parallel with the other efforts of the World Accounting or the WAVES project. And so I was checking if Dr. Ann already presented this coverage, because I'm looking at when we talk about natural capital accounting, we're looking at how is it related to our system of national accounts? And so let me just present this briefly. When we talk about natural capital accounting framework, as already mentioned by Dr. An, is that it covers the system of environmental economic accounting central framework, and then the SEA ecosystem accounting. And the reason for the addition, as mentioned earlier, it's been almost 3 decades, and since it's now finally a statistical standard approved by the UN Statistical Commission, is that now we have a mechanism and methodologies for accounting for the contribution of the environment, and now we call it the nature's value to the economy. But there's more to that. It's not just the contribution to the economy, but also contribution to our welfare. I'd like to distinguish that because in the limited boundary of the system of environmental economic accounting that is linked to the system of national accounts, they're only focusing on valuation that is based on exchange value. So that means marketed. What is missing, of course, in the system of national accounts is the contribution of the environment. And of course, when we talk about the environment, we're talking about including the spatial considerations like the ecosystem. And so when we talk about natural capital accounting, we have here the central framework, which accounts for our assets labeled as stocks, as well diagrammed by Doc Hunt earlier on that water asset that provides the flow of water, our assets like watersheds, which provides water. But what is missing in the central framework is asking the question, what about ecosystems? How much are our ecosystems contributing? Why is there an emphasis on ecosystems? As you have, the reason for this conference, in fact, or for this webinar, in fact, is we're focusing on our Kalikasan. So when we talk about Kalikasan, we're not talking about commodities, but we're talking about ecosystems. And so we are asking the question, what's the contribution of our ecosystems in its present state? Like, is it degraded or is it depleted or so? So we have to ask the question, how much is the value contributed by our ecosystems? And so when we talk about natural capital accounting and its methodologies, it now adds, as it was accepted as a statistical standard in 2021, we're now talking about ecosystem accounting. And that is the focus of my reaction today, because when I was asked to review the bill, the PENCAS bill, some of the things that I had to point out is there's the distinction, of course, between economic accounts and the welfare accounting. And so it will not be enough, we don't have enough time to explain that. And we usually do that during our capacity building sessions, training sessions. So to explain the details and the difference between the two. Okay, so let me now begin by simply just defining what do we mean by ecosystems accounting or ecosystem accounting. So the standard definition is that it's a way of integrating a framework for organizing biophysical information about our ecosystems. So that means now quantifying, tracking changes, so measuring period to period changes so that we can know if it is being degraded or not, because when we know that it's degraded, it's not providing the services. So if it's degraded, we're losing our contribution from our natural capital, and measuring ecosystem services or the flow of services from our ecosystems, and then therefore translating them into value so that we can compare it with our economic transactions. And so we are linking this information to measures of economic and human activities. So take note, it's economic and human activities. And so the idea here of ecosystem accounting is bringing together information about our ecosystem. And as you will note, not one institution or one organization has the control of all information. So it has to be integrated from different sources to come up with an integrated accounting system that will help us actually come up with a basic information about our status of our environment, whether it's depleted or degraded, come up with the accounts, and provide indicators for our policy and decision makers. And to extend it further, we want to have indicators that we are actually addressing our commitment to international commitments, such as the Convention on Biodiversity, the Climate Paris Agreement, and of course the other agreements that we have. So yes, as you'll see, there was a question earlier about how useful is ecosystem accounting. It has many uses, and in the next slides, I will be presenting some of the uses that we have actually tried to undertake, how it can be used, using examples from our previous studies or projects related to ecosystem accounting. So let me then just let you sort of bring this down together by saying that when we do ecosystem accounting, it really relates to providing scientific evidence so that it will help and support our planning, not only policy and decisions, but planning even at the local level. Sometimes we think of accounts only from a national perspective. So we always think about Philippine Statistical Authority and our system of national accounts. But it turns out that when we do ecosystem accounting, it can also be localized because there are already methods used or developed that can actually apply ecosystem accounting even at the local planning, regional, provincial, or municipal or city planning purposes. And so that means making ecosystem accounting relevant not only from a national agency perspective, but also from a local planner's perspective and local policies as well. So that means, so it aims to really identify temporal and spatial changes in ecosystems' contribution to the society. So that's in summary is my essence of the ecosystem accounting. And it is one way of organizing already existing information. So for instance, I'm showing here example for the forestry sector. What we wanted to know, for instance, is the first thing that we want to ask, like, for example, how much is the contribution of forestry to our economy? In our recent assessment, using our Philippine forestry statistics, it turns out, even though we have almost half of our land area are called forest lands, it is only contributing 0.07% to our national economy. So what happened in the past, in the 80s, it's quite a substantial contribution to our economy, but now it's only contributing 0.07%. And so that means we are not accounting for its other contributions, particularly contribution of services to other industries and other sectors. And so it's the 7% or the 0.03% that's recorded is maybe largely contributing to the timber production and other non-timber production provisions of the forest. And it's not contributing climate, water, and so on, other services. So we need to really account them so that we can say that we are actually managing our forests well. So this is one way, this diagram is just to show that it has its benefits not only for account statistical purposes, but also for local and national policy directions as well. So diving deeper, when we talk about ecosystem accounting, so we are trying to measure, for instance, in this small diagram, we're talking about forest ecosystems and cropland ecosystems just to represent our forested and our sort of agricultural ecosystems. But of course, under a forest ecosystem, there are several sub-ecosystems, and this not even include the coastal and marine ecosystems in this diagram. But of course, just to simplify it, where we wanted to account not only for the wood provisioning services from the forest, we also want to account for the climate regulation services. So we're talking about carbon sequestration, carbon storage, carbon emissions, and so on. We're also accounting for other services like recreation and tourism. This not that even include the other what we call cultural services, which is a broad term that encompasses scientific, educational, religious, and cultural service, other traditional practices services. And so just to show to you that there are already methods and tools that has been developed for that. And so that when we talk about implementing the PENCAS, quite a number of tools and methodologies have been developed, but it has to be from a spatial perspective because, as you know, the ecosystem services in different parts of the country have varying figures. You cannot say that the ecosystems in the Visayas are the same as the ecosystems in Luzon. And so that means you have to really have some sort of different measures and quantifications of those different services. And so that's the reason for this spatial emphasis of ecosystem accounting more than the commodity emphasis of the central framework. So I'm kind of rushing here so fast. And just to show to you, this is an example of how it is reported, not only on a sort of a 1 year period, it has to be reported on a yearly basis so that we will know if there is really depletion, if there is really degradation, so that local and national policy and decision makers can take action and take action in terms of investments, resources, and manpower. So first we have to quantify the ecosystem services, transform them into values by using valuation techniques, and arriving at values not only in the present, but also put future values brought down to the present so that we can make comparisons if we are going to do some trade-off analysis. And so these are examples of the reports. And here is an example, for instance, that we did for Laguna de Bay Basin. So I don't know if there is anybody here from the Laguna Lake Development Authority or who are living in the basin, which has about 62 or 61 municipalities. And so we're able to come up with an account in terms of water contribution, flood regulation services, and also the pollution that's occurring in Laguna Lake. And so we are able to estimate actually how much is the contribution per watershed. There are 21 watersheds in Laguna de Bay that contributes to its flood regulation services, that contributes to its fishery production, and that also contributes to its climate regulation services. So these are examples that also gives us an idea on how it is reported. The accounts can also be used for monitoring our commitment to the net zero carbon. And we have committed that by 2030, we have already reduced carbon emission, but apparently it's not. So actually we have revised it that by 2050, but take a look at how we can measure it. So there should be some kind of implementation of projects, because simply by implementing a policy, you're just simply maintaining the present emission. In order for the emission to be reduced further, you have to have project additions. Because right now, in fact, this is just my initial diagrammatic representation. If this is our target emission, we have to develop projects and account for them on a regular basis so that we know that we're actually meeting our targets in terms of our commitment to the Paris Agreement. Okay, so we also can use the accounts in terms of coming up with a trade-off between reclamation or no reclamation, or adjusting reclamation areas to accommodate for maintaining ecosystem services for in this case in Manila Bay. So with Doc Ann and other members of the team, we came up with an estimate of what would be the benefit and the cost of pursuing reclamation versus maintaining conservation, or applying or implementing the Supreme Court mandamus on Manila Bay conservation. In fact, we had to also employ different expertise in order for us to come up with an estimate of the benefits and costs using the accounting of different ecosystem services. So I'll just rush through. This is just some of the data needs, and we're able to come up with a valuation. But of course, again, this was a short period, so we have initial estimates that needs further refinement but we can already prove that we can actually come up with evaluation of ecosystem services of particular site, not only from a national accounting perspective. And the next 3 slides is just show to you how it can also be used for climate planning and at the same time regional planning, and also assess impacts like Hayan. This is one of the projects, the presentation by Dr. Ariel Blanco in one of our natural capital accounting conference done in 2017. Using data on from remote sensing, and we're able to generate, for instance, the extent and condition of our seagrasses in coastal areas, and also coming up with estimates of production of different crops in agricultural areas. And so that means now, so in fact, if you're asking, how are we now pursuing ecosystems accounting? And this is the list. I have a few more seconds to pursue, so I have just 2 slides. These are the current efforts and future efforts on ecosystems accounting mentioned by Doc Ann, the Reinvest project, which is actually dedicated to natural capital accounting of the West Philippine Sea. And Picard has implemented a number of projects in different watersheds. And we have an upcoming GAF-funded natural capital accounting project in Palawan and Davao Oriental. And our group, the Economy Environment Group Philippines, is continuing capacity building on ecosystems accounting in different state colleges and universities. And of course, so here are my recommendations. So finally, review of our priority ecosystem services for accounting. So that means go back to our NCA roadmap and take a look at which of those that we want to prioritize. And there's need to be a development of national and national level compilation of accounts. And as I've mentioned, doing NCA is multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary. So that means capacity building is very important for all. And then we also need to clarify roles of compilers, producers, and those of integrators of the accounts. And past experiences dictates sustained and sufficient allocation of resources and manpower to sustain accounts development, and of course, sustain capacity enhancement at all levels and establish a community of practice for ecosystem accounting. That ends my presentation. Sorry, I exceeded by about 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jem. That's why I thank God for having people like you to also guide us for this kind of endeavor. And also, just to share, just by seeing the graph that you showed earlier about the carbon dioxide emission graph, the target by 2050 and the business as usual carbon dioxide emission, just by looking at it, I can only say that we really need to work that out. Kailangan po talaga natin magtulong-tulong. Ang laki ng margin talaga. So once again, maraming salamat, Dr. Jem. And of course, moving on to our second member ng ating panel of reactor, of course, to broaden and widen and amplify our discussion about PENCA's bill. Our next reactor is the Chairman Emeritus of the PCW Philippines. And after being the firm's chairman and the senior partner for 2 consecutive terms, both a certified public accountant and lawyer, and he specializes in tax planning and business restructuring and reorganizations and integrated tax, legal and accounting advice. He attended business courses at Harvard Business School, the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, and IESE Business School. He is the managing partner of Cabrera and Company. Our panel reactor is also a board member in PCW Southeast Asia Regional Consulting Practice. Our next reactor, the governor of the Management Association of the Philippines and chair emeritus of PricewaterhouseCoopers or PCW. Please welcome Attorney Alex Cabrera. Attorney, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mark. I hope that I'm coming in clear. I'm taking this call from another speaking engagement venue. But firstly, I want to thank Dr. Cora Claudio of climate change and sustainability and MAP for this invitation. I'm honored to speak with Dr. Marian and Dr. Jem, whom I would consider mentors at this stage. I would I am very supportive of any bill that would pivot from consumerism to conservation and more in particular regeneration. Um, from reports issued by PwC, there's some really telling data. 55% of global GDP is highly or moderately dependent on nature. So more than half of the GDP of the world actually uses nature to produce their income. 7.6 billion people cause loss of 83% of all wild mammals and half of all plants. 25% of the current plant and animal species are threatened by human action, and 1 million species are facing extinction within the next decades. Since the Industrial Revolution, 75% of land surface has been altered by humans, of course, and we have polluted two-thirds of the world's oceans. 85%, 85% of wetlands have been destroyed. Of course, the wetlands is the habitat of terrestrial and aquatic species. They're useful in flood control, water quality, and shore erosion. Um, when I was reading the PENCAS bill, um, one thing that I noticed is it expresses the objective of achieving a balance, an ecological balance. And I think that would be a good place to start. Um, Awareness would be a good place to start. And if there is an ecological imbalance now, let's begin by saying that because we will not be able to solve a problem unless we have a solution that will develop awareness. Um, Certainly, the PENCAS bill is a very good start because we all deserve credible and useful information about our environment. I think when I was reading the bill, one of the things that I noticed is the interaction of living things with non-living things. And I'd like to bring to focus I hope that the soil can be treated as a living thing and something that we account for as well, eventually in the final version of the bill. Soil health and soil quality is very important. I'll tell you an example, because soil has been eroded, of course, by agricultural farming and chemical fertilizers. When I was in Palawan and meeting with this balikbayan scientist who's into biochar. What it is this charred or heated coconut husk is treated with decomposed waste. And the decomposed waste is coming from decomposition using superflies. So the waste that decompose, for instance, in 2 weeks, that quick, using the endemic superfly in Palawan. The point that I'd like to drive is that when this was tested, um, in growing cabbage, for instance, the cabbage, there was 5 times more productivity of the cabbage using grown in the soil that was treated with biochar. And the quality of the cabbage is green on the outside. It's also green on the inside. And certainly soil quality is very important. And we should start treating soil as one of our assets. Insofar as government agencies are concerned, and this has also been alluded to by our earlier speakers, the local government units are very important in the success of this bill. If I may just cite an example how important local government unit action is. The same Senator Legarda, yeah, actually authored this bill, which became a law, the waste segregation bill. I I don't know if we try to segregate our garbage, but the city of Makati just compiles everything in one without respecting our segregation. They don't practice segregation. So how can anything happen without the support of local governments? And that is not to say that other local governments are very good in their waste management systems, but the existing law on local government autonomy impacts a lot on whether the local government unit will participate in important national programs such as that embodied by the PENCAS bill. And of course, I would like to think that the bill is not of course about data gathering per se, but ultimately has the objective of accounting not only for the contribution but how we conserve and regenerate our natural assets to the extent that it's possible. The governance in government agencies involved in the PENCAS bill is also very important. And on this particular point, I'd like to compliment the DENR Undersecretary Tony Loizaga, who recently signed an engagement with the PwC. Of course, PwC is a global firm, but we're doing it here locally to improve the governance of the DNR insofar as the processing and approval of licenses and permits are concerned. And I think this is a very good model for other government agencies to professionalize and improve the governance so that the public service can be made more effective. There will be more accounting and accountability, as well as transparency in these government agencies. No, but one thing that really stands out here in PANCAS is that this is the public sector side of the equation. But I think that equally, if not even more important, is the private sector side of the equation. Because right now there are no accounting rules that require private sector to report on their income on the natural assets of an economy. There is sustainability accounting is required only of listed companies, and reporting standards are being developed for climate risks. But there is nothing yet about natural assets. So this is a very important forum, especially for me if I want to begin an advocacy on the private sector side, to begin reporting on natural assets, the impact on their business of the natural assets they use, and disclose this to the public and what they are doing to conserve and regenerate the natural assets. Um, I'm hoping to see also in the bill, some measure of success. How do we know that the bill is achieving what it is meant to achieve, and what are the measures that should be in place in order for us to say that the bill is successful. I go with I subscribe to Dr. Jem's uh, reference to prioritization, and I would like to see prioritization in the bill. The PENCAS bill has a gargantuan task, but if we prioritize, especially on the natural assets that needed the most protection, then I think that we will achieve better multiplier effect. If you allow me to just mention a few, for instance, the Verde Island passage of the Mindoro Oriental, 800 liters of industrial fuel oil spill from Mount Princess, MT Princess Empress. It's a rich fishing ground. It supports 2 million fishermen, and the fishing sector is losing 5 million per day according to the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resource. Not to mention that it is also the home of the hawk hawkbill turtle, the whale sharks, the giant manta rays, and the dugongs. The Masungi Geo Reserve in Baras Rizal is the award-winning geotourism site, watershed, and conservation area, home to 400 species of flora and fauna. But now they're being threatened by illegal logging, land grabbing, quarrying, and threats of violence against forest rangers. Mount Busa in Sarangani province, reputed to be the most biodiverse. It's a bird conservation area, home of the critically endangered Philippine eagle. But its 154,000 hectares is now being lost to mining, logging, hunting, and poaching. Coral reefs of Roray Masbate is a dying reef according to the DNR. The once 129 hectares of marine ecology is now only 12% remaining of that ecology. And the Kaliwa Watershed Forest Reserve in Sierra Madre mountain range, considered to be the holy mountain. Of course, the herbal plants are there, the rock formations, they will all be gone if the Kaliwa Dam project proceeds. Many more, but there's West Philippine Sea, and of course there's Palawan, the last frontier, and there are many a number of priority areas that we can begin to tackle as primary or initial focus of the PENCAS bill because we cannot do everything at once. Just a few more reactions to the bill. Um, the bill mentions about nature rights, but insofar as we are concerned, it, there are nature rights which are deeply embedded in human rights. And the reason why we are concerned about nature is to protect the human right to life and human wellness and human quality of life. It mentions the ecological balance for people, but I think the PENCAS bill really is not addressing us, not the people living today, because we can consume the environment and survive. And the real issue is for the next generation and the next generation after that. Are we leaving the right ecosystem to them, a sustainable ecosystem that will help them survive and that they can inherit and they can enhance, picking up from what we left behind. And ultimately, the environment rights are people rights. And whatever we do to the environment, we do to ourselves. So, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to react to the bill. We are again supportive of this bill, which is a very good start to shift our mindset from pure consumerism to hopefully conservationism and regeneration. And thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your valuable insights, Attorney Cabrera. Um, and that ends part one of our forum. Before we proceed to the Q&A portion, we would like you to turn on your cameras for a souvenir photo, right, Mark?
Correct, Miss Marie. So I'd like to invite everyone to please open your camera for our quick photo op. And may I ask the assistance of GC Secretariat, Miss Mabeth, to take the photo for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Give us a cue.
Okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Okay. I think we have a few announcements, right, Mark? Before
Correct.
we proceed, yeah.
Correct.
I forgot, yeah.
Yes, we have a few announcements, especially for the evaluation and e-certificate. Let me announce about evaluation, of course.
Yes.
First, the District Secretariat will share a link to all of us here, the evaluation form for today's Kamayan Forum session, in the chat box as well. The link will also be flashed on screen. I think we are seeing it right now. And please take time to give us your feedback to help us improve the forum. Thank you. Thank you.
Also, for the information of those who request an e-certificate of participation, here are the requirements for their issuance. A, the participant must have been actually present in the forum and not merely pre-registered. Daya yun na, pag pre-register ka lang, tapos hingi ka ng certificate of participation. And B, additionally, the participant must submit a duly accomplished evaluation form. So important yung evaluation form. That's it. Then you can get your certificate of participation. Okay, I think now we're ready for the Q&A portion. And I guess Mark has a few guidelines and reminders with regard the open forum.
Thank you, Miss Marie. So I hope you were able to jot down all your questions with our earlier presentations. And we have a few guidelines as well before we move on to our open forum. First one, please unmute your microphone as soon as your name is called. Give your name, your organization, your school, or your location right now. And to ask a question or maybe give your comment or share a comment, you may either raise your hand to verbalize it or post your question or comment on the chat box, and I will read them for you. And again, if medyo we are slightly shy, feel free to send your questions directly on me or maybe Miss Marie, and we are happy to share it with the group. And we'll take as many questions as we can, including our participants from Facebook live streaming.
Yes, the Secretariat can flash the questions from Facebook on screen, right? Like they did last time for the questions on chat. That was nice.
And one more thing before we move on, please keep our question or maybe comment concise.
Yes. Huwag masyadong mahaba. Maubusan tayo ng oras. Okay. And also, questions lang. Wag nang mag-lecture. Okay. If you want to share something, information or advice or suggestion, you can use the chat box for that. Thank you. Okay, so who will fire the first question?
Miss Tessa.
Oh, Tessa, as always. Tessa.
Yes, good afternoon. Yeah, I'm Tessa Oliva of Green Convergence. Thank you to all our speakers. They're very important data and very inspiring. Dr. Castillo said that we should actually look into not only the economics, but also on the welfare accounting, which is very good. And Attorney Cabrera talked about the importance of including or local government units, their role. Because like for example, here in our community, with local government, for example, a fund from the congressman, our open sites in our subdivision are changed. The trees are up because of mga structures. Because our local government has this budget for mga multipurpose hall, for example. So I think with this PENCAS bill, it's important to really include even the very individual citizens. Like for example, in our own homes, if we have these trees, I think if there can be an incentive for private properties that grow trees, and then this can be deducted from their real estate tax. That would, I think, more people will be preserving our trees, and that can help address our climate change problems. So I would like to know, does the PENCAS bill have incentives such as this so that people will move and really regenerate our natural resources, which is really needed at this time? Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Okay. Who is that addressed to? Anyone? All of them?
Right. It can be addressed to Dr. Angeles or to Dr. Castillo.
Yes. So, okay. Who will take the floor, please? Dr. Angeles or Dr. Castillo?
I will.
Kasi ito nga, may meeting ako, di ba? Biglang lang may meeting. Akala ko Thursday lang ano.
I'll attempt to answer that.
Yes, Dr. Angeles.
Yes, thank you, De Los Angeles.
Sorry.
The PENCAS bill is about the system of accounts for environment and economic. So it's to generate the data that would be processed, that would come up with indicators, but it has numerous uses. So if we list all the uses there, it's not the appropriate place for in the bill. Probably in the implementing rules and regulations, examples of uses can be put forth. But the bill right now is already quite encompassing as it is. So even the indicators of wealth, we can mention the quality of life as earlier commented on, that it may not be quite present there, but I think it is, but anyway, that should be reviewed. But the other uses, marami kasi eh. Some of which I mentioned, like benefit cost analysis. The most important use that is for an indicator system are the tools of government, like the EIA, the project evaluation planning tool, and economic instruments. We can mention economic instruments, which could include incentives, disincentives, and all the other instruments. So that could be enhanced part of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, we also hope that the local government units can be inspired by this bill, and so they can come up with their own ordinances to improve the climate change capacity, addressing the climate change capacity of the local community also. Thank you.
Okay. Are we ready for the next question? Are there any raised hands? Do you see any, Mark?
Miss Marie, I think I have a question, or maybe I must have missed it during the presentation. I think it's one of the perks of being a co-moderator here to
Okay, yeah, sure.
I think this question can be answered by Doc Marian. I must have missed it. Is there a way we can include the OST in the bill? Because I think I did not see any participation from DOST, since we've called for the help of academic groups, and I think it's a good maybe partnership with DOST to have them in the bill, so they can really help amplify the research about the accounting, and they can really tap the schools for this.
Great suggestion. Thank you. We have to review the listing of the agencies that are in the draft bill.
I think it's included, Doc. I think it's included, Doc, kasama yung DOST doon. It's a very important ang role.
Enumerate ba natin yan? Okay. Yeah.
All right. Must have missed it. Thank you so much.
Okay, I saw a hand. Elizabeth. Elizabeth Balais. Yes. Yes, Elizabeth.
Hi, good afternoon.
You
My
have a
name is
question?
Elizabeth. I'm a member of the Green
Oh,
Convergence.
there are several hands. Wait.
Hello.
Yes, Elizabeth.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, this is my question. Farmers get tired of tilling their land. They get low profit when they sell their sacks of palay and are at the losing end when typhoons strike. Also, their children do not want to become farmers or manage their farms. These reasons make them sell their land to developers, or they themselves convert their agricultural land to residential land. As much as they want to preserve their land for agricultural reasons, they can't due to the lack of monetary resources. So my question is, in what way can they be helped, or what recommendations can we give so that they will not be moved to sell their land to developers? This question is directed to anybody. Thank you.
Okay. Free range. Sino kaya ang gustong sumagot niyan? So, we have any takers?
Dapat po
Dr.
yata
Jem.
magsasagot nun is Department of Agriculture. But if you are looking at how the PENCAS can respond to the disincentive to farmers in terms of keeping up or not efficiently using their land, it has to do with providing them information on demand of agricultural products. And so kaya very special ang natural capital accounting is because we're looking at where are our resources and where are the demand for our resources, whether it's from our natural resources or from our cultivated resources such as farms. It is true kasi ang dami ng nagiging issues sa productivity ng farms natin. Mataas yung cost nila and yet they're experiencing low prices because there are other environmental factors that contributes to decline in their productivity. At the same time, yung issue ng transport, para malaman natin saan nga ba talaga yung farms, saan yung pinaka-efficient production, para malaman natin saan ang conversion na kailangan. And that can be answered partly by providing them information of where the demand is and where are the resources are. I think ang direction ito is LGUs can provide directions and information to the farmers kung ano yung mga resources that are missing and so on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I see three hands. Miss Marie, I think we can
Yes,
start
go
with
ahead.
Doc Jerome,
Pick
to
the
be
next
followed
one.
by Mr. Raf Junicio and Sergeant Sarmiento. Go ahead, Doc Jerome.
Hi, Jerome.
Hello po, magandang hapon sa lahat. I'm so happy I was able to join this Kamayan this time. Na-miss ko yung
We're also happy you're able to join.
Ayun po. Ay tanong po ako kay Doc Ann and kay Doc Jem and sorry, I forgot the name of our last reactor. Sorry, baka na-miss ko lang po sa presentation, but how do we or is genetic resources the benefits or the economic gains that can be derived from the use of genetic resources? Paano po siya na consider in the national capital accounting if they were considered at all? Kasi parang yun nga, but forgive me if I missed it kanina. May I ask two questions? The next one naman is more on how do we popularize all of these things? Kasi po tayo, we're blessed na we have been exposed in our academic work. But how can we simplify all these concepts so that we can easily explain them to our communities, especially those in the margins? Dugtungan ko yung sinabi ni Lala kanina na yung concern ng mga farmers. So farmers, fishers, indigenous peoples, how can we help to better explain this to them so that they can realize actually that they are the ones who are richer than most of us, hindi lang nila na-enjoy yung wealth and benefits of our biodiversity. Ayun lang po. Thank you very much in advance for the response.
Thank you, Dr. Rob.
I'll take a first shot and then Jem can follow.
Sige po.
We have not done previous work on biodiversity values, particularly for the maintenance of gene pools from that would generate either existing or future sources of pharmaceuticals, nutricals, and the like. But that should come out of future accounting work, particularly coming from the current work of CBOL, which I'm preempting a future presentation by CBOL, which looks at the protected areas and the high conservation value areas, and coming up with genetic indicators that could include also gene pools. So wala pa ngayon. And IPBES, in fact, the new recent work of IPBES on nature's values does talk about that, but they're all still in the cookbook stage, hindi pa na luto. So hopefully we will be able to cover this when the PENCAS bill is passed. Thank you. Dr. Jerome, hi.
So yeah, my response is also is brief. And I saw in the participants list Sid, Noela, Las Marias, because they were the ones who conducted the project on wealth creation, which includes actually genetic resources assessment in some parts of the Philippines. And so if you are asking it for it, whether it is included in the SEA framework, it is definitely one of the, there are of course three categories of ecosystem services. One is provisioning services, and part of the accounting methodology is accounting for genetic resources as well. Aside from, right now there is ongoing working group on biodiversity, accounting for biodiversity. At present, in the present form of the SEA ecosystem accounting, it is categorized as ecosystem condition account, but not yet considered in terms of its monetary value. It's just basically physical accounting. Now, the second question on how do we simplify? I encountered that question many times because it looks like, yeah, counting is not really for farmers. So the question is, how do we communicate, we as academicians or perhaps people in the academic sector can actually, kasi nga sabi natin, and PENCAS should address poverty, pero sabi natin it's indirect yung kanyang addressing poverty because we're just developing the accounts and telling them how wealthy we are, but yet we do not know if people are who are actually experiencing the wealth. So it's yung isa sa mga work ng Economy Environment Group Philippines is training scientists to communicate to different audiences, from policymakers to actually including ordinary citizens. Kasi nga ang hirap, diba, from academicians na we are trained to communicate. I myself, when I started discussing pagdating sa aming mga focus group discussions sa farmers, I tend to assume na they know certain terms na hindi pala. So really, it has to be a training. There's a need for capacity building to communicate terms that is understandable by all levels. So pag naggawa tayo ng survey, pag gumawa tayo ng focus group discussions and key informant interviews, we have to simplify our use of language. Yun lang. Yun po sa akin. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jem. I think we can now move on to the second question. Go ahead, Mr. Raf.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for this event. Very interesting. I might have missed it because I didn't came late, but in terms of training the LGUs on these different kinds of topics, is it required And is there a free resource for them? Kasi having been able to work with our company, Make a Difference Travel, we do regenerative travel, and we work with farmers, fishermen, and indigenous people on livelihood and improving the environment. And what I find so far is at least the LGUs that I've worked with, San Felipe, Zambales, Lobo, Batangas, parang it doesn't sound like it's required. And many times parang nangangapa sila where to find the info. So I'm wondering if you have insight on this. Like, is it required? Where do they usually get the info? Is there a free resource internal to the government, or is an external someone trying to help them? Yeah. Thank you.
Right now, it's not required. What is required of the LGUs is to do the CBMS, community-based statistics, no? Monitoring statistics. But that could be tweaked and enhanced to include statistics on natural resources that are under the LGU purview. But that's still another stage, but it's good that you mention it, because that section, I think, in the bill is quite missing on the role of the LGUs. Somebody was that was supposed to be improved from the last committee work. So we'll see. It's already an improvement. Wala pa, malayo pa.
Wala pa, ma'am.
Jem might have more insights on this.
We have the same, Doc, and yun nga. Kasi actually, ang complaint ng mga LGUs ngayon is sa dami ng mga local development plans na nire-require sa kanila. Sasabihin nila, ano na naman kaya ito? So, so we really have to design it in such a way that it will not be an added burden. And there was a question actually earlier about incentives for LGUs. So, to be clear about whether it's an indirect incentive for them to undertake natural capital accounting, and what it will benefit them, apart from information provided to national government agencies. It should show them to them they will benefit from accounting for their wealth, natural wealth. So wala pa yon. So hopefully, dapat nga, I just mentioned about incentives. Hindi pa yata clear yung incentives for LGUs to undertake natural capital accounting. So those current PENCAS bill.
Sige, sir. Thank you, sir. Kasi yung nangyari sa, just for example, sa Lobo, Batangas, the group that's helping them do it is a combination of First Gen Corp, Mad Travel, and UP Los Baños.
Yes, yeah.
So it took three groups, diba? So I'm just curious about, parang, are there other LGUs looking for it? Kasi as LGUs go, parang there are LGUs that are interested and some that are not, diba?
If I could add, we have some experience in working with LGUs on developing either their LC CAP or their CLUP, and it's expensive to do it because the data is not there. We have to generate data, and this is parang baliktad eh. Dapat nauna yung may data na para magamit yung magawa yung CLUP, whatever requirements there are, including climate change action plan. You need all this information, considerable information to do realistic planning, hindi yung cut and paste or very rough data. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Raf. And Ms. Marie, go ahead.
Yeah, I think who's the next one you said?
Mr. Sarge Sarmento, and then maybe we can entertain some questions from our chat box, and we can now move on to Dr. Galang.
Yes, Dr. Galang can be last.
Thank you very much for this very, I think, very helpful forum, and about time that this is done, and the PENCAS bill is passed. I'm currently involved with Save Palawan movement, Zambales Environmental Defense Advocates Alliance, and Save Paradise Reef in Samal Island. And I was trying to see how this could connect to even the granting of MPSAs, ECCs, and even FPIC for the IPRA, to how much extent can we connect the PENCAS and integrate them into the IPRA, to the EIA system, to the Mining Act, so that prior to granting any MPSA or any ECC or even the FPIC, that there is a really evaluation of the ecosystem services, the cost-benefit analysis. So a free, prior, informed consent is really made by the community and the policymakers and the decision makers. So again, on a moving forward basis, should that be a requirement that evaluation be done first, a holistic evaluation be done first of the ecosystem before any permits are given, especially for resource-affected industries or resource-dependent industries, and also for those existing now in major environmental hotspots like the ones I'm involved in Palawan, South Palawan especially, and in Zambales, and in Davao, with the bridge that's being built to Samal Island. Can there be a requirement in the PENCAS bill that an audit be made of these ongoing projects, so that moving forward, corrective actions can be made, or certain amendments can be made to their licenses or to their permits, so that in the end, moving forward, less destruction is happening, and the less adverse impact is done to the environment, and we conserve more based on the evaluation that we result from the studies. Can that connection be done by the PENCAS bill to the IPRA, to the EIA, to the Mining Act, please?
Yes. The question is, how fast can we generate the data, and maybe we have to prioritize with respect to the burning issues and area-specific issues. But better information system that could come out from the PENCAS definitely is needed to address recurring debates that never get resolved because the data is not there.
In fact, we are close to filing a case with the Supreme Court, basically questioning the grant of certain ECCs or renewal of ECCs or MPSAs to mining companies, where there's really, based on the current studies, and we've actually get scientists now in South Palawan to take a study of how the impact of the mining has been to the community, to the ecosystem, to the protected area, to the watershed. So I think the urgency of that is very clear.
Okay.
No more? No more.
May I now?
Dr. G, would it be okay with you to entertain some questions muna from our
Okay,
chat
sure.
box?
Except that I think my question is quite allied to Mr. Sarmiento's comment.
Okay, then.
Go ahead.
Logical sequence.
Yeah. I think first of all, thank you to our speakers. I said that PENCAS is a game changer, but listening to them, I think it is mind-boggling.
Yes.
Yes, wow. Hard to be an economist. Anyway, my question is about valuation. Of course, the UN groups on this issue are searching for the best matrices, no? The standards, how to value a tree, how to value a square meter of cropland, for example. How easy is it to come to a consensus on the value of on values? Because in the end, don't you think one person's opinion about the value will be very, very different from another? For example, the value of a forest to an indigenous person, she probably might say it's priceless. Okay, although you can look at the waters, the ecological services, the biodiversity, the tangibles and intangibles, and come up with something, but there is still some subjectivity that will probably come in. Dr. Cabrera mentioned the Kaliwa Dam, for example. Okay, there was an EIA. I don't know how good the EIA was, but obviously the forests will be destroyed. The indigenous peoples are against it, and yet it pushed through. If the PENCAS bill would the PENCAS bill have changed the decision?
That's a good question.
Okay. And then just before I go, I would like to suggest lang that can we also include, besides the things that you are, the riches, the values, that the riches, the blessings that you are measuring, also the shape of the mountains? Because we always say that mountains absorb the impact of typhoons, right? But when we cut down mountains, we are not only destroying the forest, but we're also diminishing the capacity of mountains to absorb the force of typhoons coming from east, west, and east and west. We're deluged with it. So if you can also include that in the resources that you're measuring. Anyway, my question about the valuing of experts.
Yes.
Among themselves and with ordinary lay people and with government officials. Thank you.
Whew, that's a hard question.
They can answer that, I'm sure.
Yeah, but it's, it must be asked, really.
Yeah, I have a slide on that, but I have to dig it up now. But valuation there's a range of valuation methods looking into direct and indirect values and use and non-use values. And in this range of valuation methods, different expertises are needed. So for example, those who are the ecologists are needed to look into certain functions and processes. We will need modelers of wind direction and impact with and without a deformed mountain on lower ground, for example. We need modelers for those. And then the economists can come in when we look at what is destroyed. So wala pa tayo doon, but it's good that you're raising that point because some of the modeling that was done in Haiyan by Dr. David and others was very important examples of what is really required. So to some extent, values are really subjective. And survey-based techniques that elicit responses from different groups will unveil their subjective valuation of what is worthy to them. And to that, we environmental economists work with behavioral scientists for that kind of work. There are not too many yet here in the Philippines who are doing that, and we hope they will multiply. But that part of the evaluation is sort of experimental in the UN SEA. So the SEA right now has a range of accepted tools, and those sets of tools are how would they call it, GEM tier 3 or priority 3 in the priority 1. So these things really have to evolve through time. But we need to caution that there are other ways of eliciting people's values through opinion polls and civil action, which is what's being done by Sarge Sarmiento's group. No? So we should not wait until economists do all the full economic valuation. Matagal pa. And we do accept some of our limitations.
Thank you, Anne. As usual, very satisfying answer.
Okay. Are you going to proceed now to your questions, Mark, from the chat box?
Sure. Thank you, Miss Marie. So I think I'll be reading first three questions, and in the interest of time, if we still have extra time, maybe we can move on to the rest of the questions. But let me read the first one. What is the involvement of academic organizations and regulators in the PENCAS bill so as to update the curriculum in the accounting of natural resources? From Mirna Vidal of Miriam College.
Very good.
I think anyone can answer it.
Ano eh, hindi directed yung question.
Correct.
What we are doing now, actually, that is one major emphasis that we wanted to put into the bill. That's the reason why we recommended that there is also a need for capacity building of academic institutions in terms of natural capital accounting, because not all academic institutions have knowledge and experience on natural capital accounting. And the Economy and Environment Group Philippines have started with a few. And the prime institution that's actually currently implementing that and hoping to engage, to include in their curriculum is the University of the Philippines, Los Baños right now. But I'm not sure if there are other academic institutions who are pursuing that. But we had discussions with, for instance, in Mindanao, the Caragay State University, and one in Northern Mindanao. But others have not yet taken that initiative of developing curriculum on that will include natural capital accounting. Right now, it's mainly UP Los Baños doing that, meaning starting to come up with different curriculum that includes natural capital accounting.
Thank you, Dr. Jem, and I think I strongly agree with that answer and solution. We in the academy need to know also the process and mechanism of this bill before we give our fair share to this PENCAS bill. Now we can move on to next question. Okay, this is Reggie Casas, the MAP Chairman of Environment. With Maui having been eliminated by wildfire, Morocco hit by earthquake, Libya hit by floods with thousands of lives lost, do we have prepared plans in anticipation of these natural disasters? Again, I think everyone can answer it.
Yeah, who should answer? Who wants to answer?
There's a requirement by DSUD on the preparation of climate change, a disaster preparedness plans. So it's not my purview to answer for them, but if they had enough information, then from a PENCAS type of work, but that's sort of scenario analysis, no? Because the PENCAS really relies on current and previous data, what is generated in accounts. So how to use this for the future in anticipation of natural disasters using previous natural disasters, that would be a potential use of PENCAS.
And to add to Dr. An's answer, I think that's very appropriate. Indeed, if you are asking for how will PENCAS help in terms of disaster risk reduction management plans and disaster management preparedness plans, one of the category of ecosystem accounting is what we call regulating and maintenance services, and it identifies nature-based solutions available, as well as options if there is a need for gray solutions, gray infrastructure, in the case there are typhoons. So one way of looking at what are the best solutions for disaster preparedness is assessing the capacity of our natural resources. For instance, storm surge protection. What is the capacity of our mangroves? And if there is no mangroves, what if we establish mangroves? So these are the information that can be provided by ecosystem accounts, but not come up with It can recommend nature-based solutions, for instance, or recommend other options. But of course, it will depend on the LGUs. But I mean, LGUs should be provided information on what are the options for disaster preparations using existing information on our natural capital included.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Jem. I hope that would suffice, Sir Reggie. And I think it's already 4:58, 2 minutes before
Yes.
5. We can only entertain one last question from
Yes, right.
Max.
I was gonna say that.
Sure. This is Trina from Bamboo Warriors Philippines. We are very active in promoting nationwide propagation of bamboo for climate change mitigation and livelihood. Does DNR have a mapping or geotagging of bamboo planted so producers and easily be connected to users? This will likewise be useful info for your accounting.
That's right. So who will answer that question?
We just had actually a workshop with Forest Management Bureau. And there are a number of efforts. And they have actually also started mapping bamboo resources in the Philippines. But of course, in order to validate those, because these are done in both ways. One is through remote sensing, in identifying the spectral signature of bamboo. But there are also field validation of where these bamboo resources are, as well as coming up with models using species site suitability models to identify potential areas for bamboo. But so if you're asking about whether we have bamboo mapping, there is existing a study conducted by the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. And there are also efforts by other organizations to do mapping of bamboo using remote sensing technologies. Thank you.
Okay.
Perhaps though, we need to qualify that what DNR monitors and maps are different vegetation in the public forest. So to the extent that some of the bamboo planting is in private land, that will not be part of their database yet, although we are encouraging them to also look into tree planting in non-public land. So for the future.
Okay, so I think that was the last question, right? Because we have no more time. I would really like to thank the participants for all your questions and the resource speakers for all their responses. Thank you very much for stepping up to answer the questions that are not really directed to anyone. So thank you very much. So we are winding down. So I think, Mark, you should introduce our important next speaker.
Correct. Thank you, Ms. Marie. And moving on to our closing remarks, it's my pleasure to introduce the board, director, and trustee of various civil society organizations and business organizations, including Business for Sustainable Development, Philippine Foundation for Science and Technology, Asian Institute of Journalism and Communication, Towns Foundation, and Sept Incorporated, an engineer economist, mother of Toby and Toby's Sports, and executive pastor Liz of Favor Church, multitasking maid, and chef who is now mastering to cook bamboo shoots for good health and well-being. Interesting. Please welcome the co-convener of CASA, or Climate Action and Sustainability Alliance, Dr. Corazon P.B. Claudio.
Okay, how do I make myself here view? Okay, there. Okay. Well, first, I'd like to thank our co-organizer, co-collaborator in crime, Nina Galang, an old friend, who is of the same age as me, I think. So we are now in that age where you have to be more patient with us, no? And the team, especially Miss Anna, who saved me a lot of things lately, and the moderators and all of those behind the technical issues, no, attending to them. I'd like also to thank our CASA, Climate Action and Sustainability Alliance. We have actually in CASA and a group which we call Recovering with Nature. And that's co-chaired, I think that was briefly mentioned earlier, by Dr. Shell Habito, former Socioeconomic Planning Secretary, and Attorney Ipat Luna, and includes really even Dr. Nina, Dr. Ann, and those who are experts in this field of natural ecosystems and natural accounting. And I'd like also to thank our MAP. You know, for the first time, I think, we have in the international conference annual that we held it last Tuesday, a session on plastic waste by a French guy who is doing something in Indonesia. And I'm very glad to tell you that we are even advanced. We are doing more. Our NGO community here has been very active, and unfortunately, despite that, we're still one of the top polluters of plastic in the world, of our oceans, including in our deepest part of this country, the Emden Deep, no? So that is really sad, no? Our MAP governor, Alex, I told him that he should really be here because if his company, PricewaterhouseCoopers, will attend to this, they will be the first, no, to do this work for our business community. And they really have to be trained on this, no? We want to thank our president. We have a lady president, Attorney Dick Dubaladad, and we have now about 1,200 members, and you have all the leading owners and the CEOs there. I am the poorest there, actually, you know, because you have there the Cs, the Villars, the Ayalas, MVP, and the strategy that I set up, and this is for my colleagues in the NGO community who are always thinking of something to convince business to do its responsibilities. Please do not do scolding and penalties, no? Because I think a very important emotional response to this thing is love. When you love a person, automatically you defend the person, correct? And that is what we can do for our environment, also make them fall in love with our environment. So I brought them to El Nido, to beautiful sites, and had our meetings there, not in offices. A conclusion in items of three items, okay? Additional info, I think, is what you need, all of us, especially those who are from schools. And let me give you 3 items, no? YouTube. We have in YouTube our YouTube channel, CAS, all caps, which stands for CASA, 4, the number 4, and U, which stands for us. So, climate action and sustainability for us. And in short, CAS for you. We're not offering CAS money, but that sounds like it, to incentivize. There are many on natural capital accounting, and you will really, I do that all the time. So I get to know it more and more deeply. And then you have the UN that Dr. Ann has been active in, and the leading countries that are already doing something on this, the ones, the ASEAN that she mentioned. And outside of that, we have India, UK, China. China is being advised by the NatCap project team of Stanford University. And so we can learn from many of them. And of course, the third one is our own Philippine Statistical Authority, which has been doing a lot of things here, no? Okay, so the next three items, why should we really care? You have heard a lot of comments on this, and I just want to request Anna, can you show my one image that I want to share with you? Because it is something that is very important that I even tell our own there. You know, whenever a businessman tries to set up something, and even in that international conference that happened last Tuesday, they always discuss manufactured goods and services, including technologies. That is the one that is measured by GDP. Indirectly measured also, but not so much, is human capital. And so now we worry about employment and things like those. So all attention seems to be focused on these two capital forms. But natural capital is not even paid attention to. So during our conference, I asked that question to our speaker who talked about facing realities with what we have. We have our natural capital, which is very important, and yet it was not discussed, no? So important now is to understand that this month of September, there are many activities that are really helping us to promote our thoughts on this. One is Manamo. It's Maritime and Archipelagic Nation Awareness Month. And as you know, our marine biodiversity is, I think, our number one natural capital, which is the best in the world. No, the second is Bamboo Month. Bamboo, which is being used also to reforest, is really our natural capital too, because most of them have been here since before we were born, and it's really difficult even to kill them if you want to get rid of them. So we have a project that we hope to launch before the end of this month, Bamboo for Food, because we worry about food and we are so focused on rice, which is very difficult for us to nurture. Because it requires water and we have to spend a lot on irrigation. But bamboo shoots, actually, I always have it in my refrigerator. Unfortunately, the ones that I have are often the canned ones that we import still from China. So I am working now with Father Bibi. I hope he's still around to help us set up a bamboo for using shoots. And I would like to invite you to prepare your recipes, because we will be issuing an invitation for you to submit the recipes following an outline, a format that we will send out, so that we can put together a recipe book on bamboo shoots. So the third one that we are celebrating this year is related, but not so much directly, although it can be adverse effect of our negligence to attend to our environment. This is National Peace Consciousness Month also. So there are three. All of these are covered by presidential proclamations. Okay, so what do we do now? Okay, I have a few minutes. Number one is we need your support to the PENCAS bill. I think you will agree that Senator Loren Ligarda, who started work on this when she was still a congresswoman, is one of the most industrious, if not the most industrious legislator that we have, that has been attending to our concerns. And so let us support her and give her whatever comments we want before Tuesday. Because on Tuesday, I understand from IPAT, are you still here, that at 3 o'clock in the Senate will be the last time for her to defend this bill. That is already up, I guess, for the vote of the Senate, no? Number two is, I hope we will include the services. No, the untalked about the flow and the ones that are not flowing. I want to value our creativity. No, that is a service that I think is the number one quality that Filipinos have. We are a creative people. I want to call your attention to my background. That is also coming from a material that is like our natural capital because it has been with us for ages. No, that is we can take out this image so that we can have a bigger version of my background. Okay. Can you give it a see that is tinalak that is woven by our women weavers Tiboli in Lake Cebu. And this one that I have is also tinalak. This one also from Abaca, and this one which is made by award-winning Towns awardee Dita Sandico is also from Abaca. So we are a creative people and we just have to look at our natural capital to see what we can produce from them. I think we can compete even with China. China's bamboo industry is multi-billion dollars already. But I think we are more creative. I have studied their bamboo industry and I think we can compete with our creativity. So that is a challenge to all of us. Okay, creativity, bamboo, Abaca, using those forms of resources that we have around us. And the third one is we know that the principal activities that have to be done are tough. No, they're not easy. Identify what they are, account for them, value them. Even the best, one of the best accountants that we have here, who is a good friend of mine, who used to sit in the board of accountancy, she told me, ang hirap niyan, Cora. No? Talagang mahirap, no? And so, that is one task. And then, I think number three is we have to add it, we have to use what we have sustainably, right? Kasi kahit madami yan, mawawala lahat yan pagka hindi natin inalagaan. And lastly, wait, meron pa akong last pala na call for another action. Values development, I think, is very important. And this is where I suggest, in addition to the OST, in all of these things that we try to change behavior of people, to treat things more carefully, with love, and to use it sustainably, is values. Now, there must be inside, and the ones in charge of that are DepEd, SHED, the churches. We have a lot of them. So let us include them in this work that is before us. And lastly, Dr. Nina has mentioned that this will be, the recording of this will be available through your Green Convergence and Kapihan Forum YouTube or Facebook. We will also have it in our MAP Facebook account and our CASA Facebook group. And I request you to also join us in CASA. We don't charge a fee. Spelled out completely, Climate Action and Sustainability Alliance. And lastly, I would like to tell you that on September 25, the Mapping the Future column of our MAP, which is the leading association of management, owners, and executives and professionals, I will have my column. I always used to write about Manamo because I used to sit in the board of the Philippine Navy, and so I was so focused on it. But then last year I included bamboo. Now this year I want to include also natural capital, but I have only like 900 900 words. And so I have to choose from whatever we discuss here, the things that we should make the general public know. And I will welcome any suggestions from you. My deadline is, well, I have to write on it this weekend because my deadline is way ahead of September 25. So September 25 inputs. Number 2 is your recipe that you should prepare on bamboo shoots. We'll try to give some incentive. We will sell that, and so you will be, if you are one of the authors, we'll share whatever revenues we can generate. And the last one is for you to join us in what we do. Let's help each other, and we will be happy to join you in what you are doing as well. Thank you very much. And from here on, I hope the ladies here, that's a policy of MAP now. When we have our meeting, we use native. So this is my native. It's pretty, is it not? Okay, thank you very much. I hope Sheila is here. I asked her to tune in also from Lake Cebu. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cora. Thank you. So, wow, that's a lot to think about and a lot to do too. Yung recipe lang iniisip ko na because I really like bamboo shoots.
Yeah, very, very nutritious. A lot more nutritious
and
than
they're very good for high blood pressure.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Always have it. After that meeting, because I really combined a lot of the bamboo warriors, I think Trina is here, I combined them and ask, especially Father Bibi, at his age, I think he's younger than me, but he looks so older than me. so his ambition is to plant, you must have heard about it, 1 billion bamboo trees.
Bamboo, yes, bamboo. He's into bamboos, really.
One of the new USEX of DNR, who is from our Stanford club, he's very good, no? He said, Cora, why are you planting so much? We have already planted about 200,000 plus hectares with bamboo. I don't know where they are. I asked for the map. Mahirap lang basahin. But then if you have them and you can already generate bamboo shoots, we will process them. Father Bibi and I are putting together a facility on it, and we have also one colleague in the private sector that can package them for the market. No, it's a matter of packaging. Kasi if you will see the labong, it's called labong, right?
Labong, yeah.
Nakalagay lang sa plastic. So ang buhay niya mga siguro 3 days. Sira na, no? Yung nakalagay sa can ng made in China, matagal yun, parati akong meron. So after our meeting, na-inspire ako, ang dami ko naka 7 days from pizza to merong
labong pizza. That's something.
I don't have a maid of any type. So I am my maid, and so hindi pa ako nakakatulog nga ngayon. Dami kasi pina-chase ni Miss Nina, Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. And we are winding down. We're it's time to say goodbye, Mark. So salamat po. Salamat. Thank you very much. This has been a ride talagang, in the words of Nina, mind-boggling. Di ba? Parang ang dami mong iisipin, ang dami mong gagawin, ang dami-dami mong kailangang ayusin. No? But it has been a very teaching moment for all of us, I think. So, Mark, magbabay ka na.
Correct, Miss Marie. I was about to say that mind-boggling, so I think I can pass on that. I would like to invite na lang our participants here to also like and share our Facebook, Lasallian Institute for the Environment, and I'd like also to take this opportunity to invite you to be a member of Green Convergence. All of us,
Yes.
maybe individual or group, in group or through our organization. And I think that would be all. And this has been your co-moderator, Mark Tinao, from the Lasallian Institute for the Environment. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much, Mark. And follow up dun sa membership ng Green Convergence, I would also like to invite everyone to visit the Facebook page of Ako Ang Bukas and try to find out what your carbon footprint is. Meron kaming greenhouse gas calculator doon that everyone can use so that you will know how much damage you're causing the environment and what you can do about it. So just Google, just go to Ako Ang Bukas Facebook page and use our greenhouse gas calculator. Also, I would like to invite you, of course, again, next Kamayan. For next Kamayan, that will be on October 20th. Every third Friday of the month, we have already celebrated our 33rd anniversary. So we are on our 34th year. Can you imagine? so dapat na akong mag-retire, I think. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending, participants, our wonderful resource speakers, our wonderful closing remarks speaker. Closing speaker, thank you so very much. And have a good, happy weekend and a good, happy life, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.